And I am Irene von der Zande, Executive Director and founder of Kidpower, Teenpower, Fullpower International. We teach skills for preventing and solving problems with people, with difficult situations and with dangerous situations. And we work with everyone everywhere, people of all ages, abilities, identities, walks of life, all over the world. We have found that the skills for being safe with people start from the time you're born and continue throughout your life. What changes are some of your abilities and some of the resources you have, and some of the kinds of problems you face or your life situations. But the actual skills are the same. Everybody, everybody. I mean, we've even found that in the womb, fetuses need to feel emotionally safe. And when people are under a lot of stress during pregnancy, it can cause stress and problems during the child's life unless the family gets help. So our goal with our emotional safety skills is to work on our own feelings. Now we have advocacy skills for speaking up on behalf of ourselves and others. We have boundary setting skills for preventing and solving problems with people, conflict resolution skills, and we have webinars that we've just been doing, and this is part of our series of webinars. But today we're talking about how we can take charge, recognize and take charge of our own emotional triggers. And because when we're triggered, it's hard to make wise choices, and it's hard to take charge of our safety. So to start with, being safe in our feelings helps us, and our minds helps us to be safe in our bodies. So to start with, we need to understand that what emotional triggers are. And they cause us to explode with feelings. They're thought, words, gestures, ideas. It can be a smell. It can be anything in our environment. It might be something that reminds us of the past, and it might just be something that is upsetting to us in the present. When we're, or that is extremely desirable to us in the present. When we're exploding with feelings, whether they're positive or upsetting, it is still making it harder to think clearly and to make safe and wise choices. Positive triggers, people don't really think about that much. This is when you are wanting so much to please somebody. Maybe you admire somebody, maybe you really like that person, or you want something so much, something to happen or something to have, that it suspends your judgment. And this happens to all of us. I sometimes, at a family party, there might be a child who is very reserved and doesn't want attention, and some family member or friend, an adult, is just so positively triggered by that wonderful, cute kid that they want to engage the child or even to hug them, and the kid doesn't want anything to do with it. That's not recognizing the boundaries of others is an example of a positive trigger. We can also be positively triggered by not taking care of our own boundaries. Maybe there's a charismatic leader that we follow and don't listen to our own judgment or our own values because that person is so amazing in some ways. Sometimes it's somebody that we really, really like or even love. We've worked in shelters where there are survivors of domestic violence, sometimes people talk about falling in love and staying with somebody even when that person's behavior is very unsafe and makes them miserable. But at the same time, that feeling of love can be a positive trigger that makes it hard to step away from that relationship, even if it's not a good choice for them. Something that on an even more serious, it's all serious, but there was a very tragic case here where I live in Santa Cruz County, where many years ago, a young man, he was in high school, and he had been part of a enactment to get kids to be aware of the dangers of driving when in, under the influence of alcohol or drugs. He even was the victim. He was they ketchup on him, and it was, and so it was ironic and tragic that just a week later, he and a bunch of friends who had all been drinking got in a car together and had a terrible accident, and he died. Now, that wasn't because they were bad kids, or bad people. It was because they were so positively triggered by the joy of being together, the excitement of being in the situation, the power of that moment, that they lost their good judgment. Now, negative triggers cause us to explode with unpleasant feelings. And I forgot to mention that we are so fortunate to have Jared Hayes and MJ Hayes from our Kidpower, North Carolina Center joining us. They will be helping us to do some demos so you can see what things look like more as they might be in a class. So if you'll join us now, MJ and Jared, and if you would like to, hi, welcome.
Hey.
So glad you're here. If those of you who are watching would like to even out loud or copy the gestures and the words as we're practicing, it will help you to remember. You can also write down your common reactions to triggers, positive or negative, or what some of your triggers are. You can put them in the chat box if you want. You can do it just to the panelists so that other people don't see, or you can put them there for everybody. Or you can just write them down on a piece of paper, because when we recognize our reactions to triggers and what our triggers are, it gives us better tools for managing them. So first of all, then, for negative triggers, we can explode inward and go like this, go, ouch.
Ouch.
We can explode outwards and go, hey.
Hey.
We can disconnect and go, whatever.
Whatever.
Now, that can be a trigger for other people, especially many times people with teenagers say, I can't stand it when they go, whatever. It's so annoying. And people can freeze. We can go, or this is often mine, we can go like the Energizer Bunny on automatic pilot and just wanting to do something, anything, when we're triggered, want to fix it. So we're going to go like this. I gotta fix it.
I gotta fix it.
And that is what it often looks like. And when we can see ourselves or see others, we can recognize it as a trigger. And we can become in charge of our triggers instead of having them be in charge of us. So we'll see you in a moment. Thank you so much. We'll have you in a minute as we start to practice. So emotional attacks then are when either deliberately or sometimes in the heat of an argument, people say or do things that convey really, really hurtful and damaging messages. And there are three categories of emotional attacks that we teach about. It's you're worthless, you're helpless, and take care of me. You're worthless is all of the language of insult. And again, if you want to write down your triggers, your worthless triggers, and or you want to either in the chat box or just on a paper for yourselves. That's old-fashioned, writing it on a paper, right? But when you write things down, it helps you to remember them, just like practicing does. So your worthless is the language of insult to you, your values, people you care about. It is hate language about targeting certain groups. It's relationship attack, like I can't stand you, or I hate you, or I don't like you. It's character attack, like you're not trying, you don't care. It can be curse and swear words. Now, in our classes, we actually, with permission, our classes for teens and adults, with permission of the participants or their adults, we do say the actual words, but I'm not going to do it here. But you know what those words are. And for a crybaby can be as triggering for a young child as the most foul language could be for a teen or an adult. Those are words that make you want to explode if they have been used with you in a damaging way. So those are examples of your worthless triggers. They're like volcanoes. You're helpless is the language of threat. Somebody saying, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to harm someone you love or someone you care about, and there's nothing you can do about it because you're helpless. You are going to lose your job. I'll tell everybody what an awful person you are. And I'll ruin your reputation. You're helpless. Take care of me is the language of is where somebody uses your caring against you, or emotional. It's a form. It is emotional coercion. So that would be somebody saying, "Look, I am just, if you'll just say that that I was at your house, and just lie for me, please, then I won't get in trouble, or let me copy your homework." Or somebody on a job saying, don't say that I'm not working and I'm supposed to be, but don't tell anybody, okay? That's a form of take care of me, where it might be against your values, or it might put you get you into trouble, but you don't want to, you don't want to upset the other person. A very dramatic form of a take care of me emotional attack happened with my daughter many years ago when she was a young adult. And she was running, she had just moved away from home. She was running in a quiet neighborhood. And suddenly this car came screeching to the side of the road, and this man in the car slumped over the steering wheel as if he were having a heart attack. Now, my daughter knows CPR, but she also knows about getting help and not trying to do something on her own that is in a big emergency like this. And she went running as fast as she could to where there were more people, and maybe somebody with a phone or somebody who could get more help, so that they could rescue this man. However, as soon as she started running towards other people, this man stopped slumping over the steering wheel and drove away quickly. That is a fairly dramatic form of a emotional, of a take care of me attack. So recognizing when that's happening can help us to decide, okay, now this is my trigger. And so and the triggers are different for different people sometimes. And if you can't think of any for yourself because you've just done so much personal work forever, I still get triggered, but okay. But if you then think of other people who might get triggered when you just see them seething or weeping because of something that somebody else said or did that has caused them to get extremely upset. And you can, and often people don't get triggered necessarily on behalf of themselves, but on behalf of other people. If there's somebody that you see as vulnerable and somebody is making hateful remarks about a certain group, or people with some kinds of problems, then, or people with differences, then that can also cause that kind of explosion. That's a different kind of your worthless attack. So now we are going to practice 10 emotional safety techniques. And the first one, and I'm going to show you how it looks, and then we'll practice it with MJ and with Jared. So the first one is to get centered, or what we like to call calm down power. So squeeze your palms together like this. Take a breath, straighten your back, maybe push your toes down to the floor. You're grounding your body. And with kids, we actually, and adults too, we like to say, calm down power. You know, when there's been, say, an abuse case in a community and we do a parent workshop, sometimes parents are sitting through the whole workshop with their hands like this, or sometimes like this, because they're so worried about the safety of their kids. And kids are safer when their adults are calm. And we are safer and we can make assessments and judgments when we're calm. It's amazing how if you teach a skill like this, to do it not in the heat of the moment, but it's amazing how it can be accessed very quickly, even by people who you might think would have a hard time doing that. I was in a workshop for kids with emotional disabilities, and there was this one child, he would just explode into rages. We practiced calm down power in the class, and as I was leaving, I saw him, because of the transition, starting to ratchet up and get more and more upset and agitated. His teacher, now this is not his real name, but she came over and she said, "Christopher, calm down power. Push your hands together." He did. "Straighten your back." He did. "Take a breath." And he calmed down. I had an experience with an adult with intellectual disabilities who was struggling. He had gotten very triggered by a practice that we were doing. And he was so upset. He was shaking and he was weeping and he couldn't, he just looked very scared and in pain. And I went up to him and I said, "Calm down, power. Push your hands together." And he did. And we went through it, and people were amazed that even people with intellectual disabilities or big emotional challenges could learn something in one moment, just a few minutes earlier, and be able to use it in the next. So let's show you how we might practice this. And here you are. All right. So let's pretend to be agitated, and let's go. You can all practice with us. Go, "Ah!" like that. Ah! Okay. And now push your hands together, straighten your back, feel your feet, take a breath, and say, "Calm down, power."
Calm down, power.
Now tell me, did that help you feel calmer?
Yeah.
It's amazing. As much as I've done this, I feel calmer. When I'm getting ready to do something like this, and there are all these people from all over, and I'm worried, usually what bothers me most is the technology, I'm like this. Okay, now you can also study meditation. It's great, but this is a very quick shortcut. Thank you. You'll be back in a minute. Okay, all right. Then we have the emotional safety screen for screening out upsetting behaviors and taking in, or language, and taking in useful information. We actually, and I'm going to share this because we're in a time when we're worried about the cells in our body, and our bodies are we're taking care of ourselves extra well. And we used to teach this as the semi-permeable membrane, which is an amazing substance that covers every cell in our body. The semi-permeable membrane means partially, you can get through it, lets in oxygen and the nutrients that our cells need to survive. It pushes out the waste and keeps out the poisons. If a cell doesn't have a strong semi-permeable membrane, it will die. And if our bodies have enough cells that don't have that, we will die. So we would tell people to imagine a semi-permeable membrane around their entire being to let in useful and important information and keep out upsetting behavior or words. However, we decided to simplify this and to think of it as a window screen. So it's the screen technique. So if you just want to crisscross your hands and look at those holes to help you remember a screen. Now, you're not going to walk around with people generally like this, but doing it with our bodies helps us remember to do it with our minds. And so there was one boy where where he had a father who was often saying very hurtful things. And so he had he practiced the screen technique, but he said, sometimes there's a little hole in the screen and a fly can get in, and that's annoying and I can deal with it, but sometimes a wasp gets in and that's a little dangerous, and that is something that I need help. And it was good for him to recognize that. But again, having that screen is a useful idea, and so we're going to practice. There you are. Okay, so you've got a situation that you're going to show us where one of you is going to be upset at the other, and you're going to be screening. You're going to show us your screen, and please go ahead.
Okay, so our situation is it's my job around the house to take out the trash, and I frequently forget, and I've done that again. So let's see what happens.
Hey, MJ, you forgot to take out the trash again?
I'm sorry.
It's leaking all over the floor.
I'm sorry. I forgot about it.
They come tomorrow.
I'll do it right now.
Right? You never remember to do this stuff.
So I am screening for the important information, which is what I'm letting in is that it is my job to take out the trash, and I did forget. It's leaking all over and they're picking it up tomorrow. But what I'm screening out is the again, his tone of voice, and why can't you do what I ask you to do?
In a more in a more dangerous situation, it might be that that somebody might be, and this is something we sometimes practice in our classes, more of a personal safety situation, that somebody might be somebody that looks like they might be unsafe, standing on the street. And why don't you show that? Okay.
Okay. Hey, get over here.
Hey, get over here.
So now what I'm doing is I'm screening out the tone of his voice, but what I'm letting in is information. Where am I? Where can I go to get away? What's his behavior? Is there anything else changing? And so that I can move away to safety.
And sometimes when we're doing physical self-defense, we also say, is he close enough to kick? Now, if I need to, as a last resort.
Yes.
Now, in the confines of these little screens we have here, we can't have you moving as far away as you normally would if somebody were being threatening or confrontive on the street. But this gives people the idea. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, so the third technique is to take the power out of triggering words by understanding that they are a set of sounds and that we can choose how much power they're going to have over us. I learned this when I was working with one of our full force instructors in Sweden. He was in training, and he said this is where they wear a padded suit and you can hit and kick, but they also use with in our teen and adult classes what we call verbal attack, where they say things that are really threatening or really gross because that's sometimes what happens in real life attacks. So people can practice protecting themselves emotionally along with physically. So I would tell him something in English that was extremely threatening and gross. I'm not going to say it here. And he would say it back to me in Swedish. And I had to laugh, which was very demoralizing for him because he was trying to learn how to act in a way that would make somebody feel threatened so they could practice taking charge of their safety. And but I realized that we have given enormous power to a set of sounds. And so we started to teach people, sometimes I call it, okay, the bitch pizza exercise. If you can imagine a whole room full of teenagers. Now, we've gotten permission ahead before we ever do this, and we say, you're never going to get to do this again. But we got permission because we don't want people to be fighting over words like that. And sometimes we get very specific permission. It's a very interesting list, what we may and may not practice with in a high school or a middle school. So everybody says bitch. And then a favorite food, 9 times out of 10, it's pizza. And after they go back and forth, they realize that it is, if you alternate it back and forth, that it takes the power out of that word as you start to really look at it. So we're going to practice, or show how we practice that. There you are. It is amazing. Every time this works, I go, wow, they're here. I'm 3,000 miles away, and here we are. Okay, so so I'm just going to do a couple. And actually, MJ, you taught this so well last time. Why don't you just teach this?
So do some examples of some triggering words that we have. Okay. So an example of a triggering word for me is "you're too short." And so an example of my favorite food would be chocolate cake.
Okay,
so
I'm going to give that to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everybody say "too short."
Okay.
Short.
Too short.
Okay. Now everybody say "cake."
Cake.
Cake.
Good. What's an example for you, Jared?
Something that triggers me is if they say I'm lazy.
Okay. And what's your favorite food?
Oh, tacos.
Okay. So everybody say lazy.
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 Everybody say tacos.
Tacos.
Tacos. And it's amazing when you go back and forth after a while, you do it more than once, how you start to, the sounds, it just becomes sounds instead of insults. And you are choosing to not let them upset you in the same way.
And it also can make you hungry.
Yes, and it can also make you hungry. All right, thank you. That's great. Okay, so there was one child who was so triggered by the word crybaby that he would just, it was fighting words. And so I wrote the word crybaby on the board. And this was a 5-year-old, this is a kindergarten. And they couldn't read, but they knew what it said. And when you write it down, it's important. And I said, so what are tears made of? And they said, water. And I said, yes. And what else? Salt. Yes. And I said, there's also, tears have stress chemicals in them. And getting stress chemicals out of your body helps your body be safer, helps your feelings be safer. And so another child said, well, then, that means that if you cry, you're practicing Kidpower. And I said, absolutely right. We then looked at that word, and each child made a big mark through it. And then each child tore, it was a big piece of paper, tore the paper. And the kid who had been so upset by that word crumpled it up and threw it into the trash can. And that word stopped causing uproar after that, because it was something that he felt he had some control over. Another technique, our fourth one, is the emotional raincoat. And that is because if you go out into a thunderstorm and you don't wear protective clothing, you're going to likely get cold and wet. Now, I have friends in cold climates who tell me that there's no such thing as bad weather. There's just inadequate clothing, and that's true for true for maybe for weather, but with people it can be harder. So imagining having a raincoat all over you that is keeping out the emotional storm that somebody might be throwing at you. If you're in a situation where it's not working to set boundaries and where you can't just leave, this might be an adult yelling at a child. It might be a boss yelling at an employee, or a customer yelling at somebody that's working there, or a client yelling at either a healthcare person or a mental health person. And whatever it is, if you're getting caught up, if you're getting damaged by that emotional storm, now I'm not talking about a physical confrontation, I'm talking about a verbal one, then it can be very, very hard. Many kids talk about being yelled at by adults, and so we had a class where a lot of kids were struggling with that. So we brought in 15. It was a class of 15 kids, 15 real raincoats. We had them put them on, and we yelled at them. We didn't yell real words. We just went blah blah blah, and they really could. They could feel the raincoat, and then when we took it off, they could feel that they could imagine a raincoat that was protecting them from the emotional storm of somebody else. So so now we're going to show how we practice. What we do is we're going to teach, and if you'll do it along with me, you might want to do it out loud. You might do it quietly instead of completely out loud, but you're going to follow along with MJ and Jared. And I'm going to just fix my screen just a little. Okay, that's better. So we want, this ends up being a partner practice. People have a lot of fun doing this because we make it playful. So first we're going to be the person who's being the storm. And so you're going to do what I do. Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
You always blah, blah.
You always blah, blah.
You never blah, blah.
You never blah, blah.
You blah, 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 you.
Or you blah, 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 you.
Okay, that's the person doing the storm. And sometimes they're just going blah, 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 blah without any interruption. The person who is wearing the raincoat in this stormy weather is making a choice to not leave or doesn't have a choice about leaving and is going to be saying de-escalating things. It's going to be saying, I'm sorry I offended you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry I offended you.
I care about you.
I care about you.
Let's agree to disagree.
Let's agree to disagree.
You're important.
You're important.
Let's talk later.
Let's talk later.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
And this is not about being truthful in this moment, although we can, if we think about it, be sorry that the person is that upset, even if we don't think we did anything wrong. A lot of times people have a hard time saying they're sorry, even though it might be the safest thing to do in that situation. But they are, but they're so triggered by, I didn't do anything wrong, that they're not thinking about how to de-escalate. So now I'm going to let the two of you, you're going to just show, one of you's the storm and the other has the raincoat.
Okay, I'm going to be the storm.
Okay.
Okay. Jared, you blah, 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 blah. You always blah, blah.
Look,
you're such a
I
blah,
care
blah.
about you.
I can't believe you blah, blah
You're
again.
important to me.
I've had it with the blah, 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 blah,
Can we
blah,
talk
blah.
about this later?
Whatever.
Excellent. And again, we have roomfuls of people. They are laughing. They're often people who are dealing in group homes or in work situations that are very challenging, and also just people just being able to practice that works really well. So, okay, thank you. The next technique is the that's not true technique. You make a fence with your hands. I'll just step back a bit to show. It's kind of like you have a flashlight that you're shining into the path in front of you. And we'll practice that in a minute with MJ and Jared. But I want to tell you something about it because it's a way to set a boundary. But especially when something that is true is mixed with something that's not true. For me, when I was growing up, I hated my curly hair. I really wanted smooth, straight hair like my friends and like was the fashion then. And the message I was giving myself is that I was ugly because I had curly hair. And of course, that's not true. I was when I was trying to explain, I had a person who has been an advisor to our organization for many, many years. But he was in Pakistan. It was 2001, just after September 11th. And he was a single Muslim man at that time. And I was trying to get a visa for him to come to the United States because I wanted him to come to training, to come to Kidpower training. And he couldn't get a visa. So I decided, and at that time it was very expensive because we didn't have all the great technology we have now. So he called him on the phone because he had been being told that he fit the profile for a terrorist. I was trying to help him understand that, how our techniques worked, because he was a management psychologist. He worked with people who were living and working on the streets. And so I tried some of our other techniques that just didn't go for him. I'm trying to do this on the phone. We have no visual. And finally I said, look, is there something about you that you don't feel, that you don't feel good about, or people have made you feel bad about? And he said, well, a piece of my thumb is missing from an accident. And I said, so then, just make your fence with your hands. And I'm going to say that to you, that you're not a worthwhile person because a part of your thumb is missing. And across the miles, across the cultures, I heard this voice through the phone say, that's not true. And then he said, I get it, Irene. It's different when you practice. So with that, let's practice. Okay. So, all right, so you're just going to say, that's not true. And then you're going to, I think that's what we're doing with this one, right? Okay.
Yeah, you're going to give us some examples and we'll demo.
Okay. Yeah. You're ugly because you don't look like a fashion magazine.
That's not true.
You're a bad friend because you don't do what I want.
That's not true.
Good. You are, you're awful because you're different.
That's not true.
You're not worth anything because you have problems.
That's not true.
So is there something that might be something that you would practice?
Yeah, something I would want to practice is I'm a bad parent because I get upset and yell sometimes.
Okay, so you're a bad parent because you get upset and yell sometimes.
That's not true.
Good. Do you have one, Jared?
Yeah, sometimes maybe I'm lazy because I took a nap.
Okay. You're lazy because you took a nap.
That's not true.
Wonderful. Thank you. I hope all of you watching are thinking of your own that's not true situations. And it's amazing how when you do it out loud, it makes a difference. Another technique is to adjust your emotional distance. And because now many people who, are, when you care about somebody, it's normal to have your heart wide open. And that can make you more vulnerable if they're having a bad day. I have a dear friend who is brilliant. And when we were working together, sometimes as colleagues, sometimes he was great to work with because he knew so much. But sometimes he would he would say something that really hurt my feelings and I'd be devastated, and it would take us off track because I was so upset about what he said that it made it harder to work together. I had a dear friend, Annette Washington. She died of breast cancer, sadly, 10 years ago. But she was one of my first self-defense instructors. And one day Annette said, Irene, just adjust your emotional distance. And it was like a light bulb went on in my head. And I said, oh, I don't have to stay close to him. I can imagine being farther away. I can filter for information, but I can also just, even if I really care, I can be close when it's safe to be close, and I can be more remote and more removed when it's not. And the next day, he was astounded because he wasn't aware when he would do it. He said something awful, and I just said fine, and I just kept going because when he did that, I just moved away. I didn't take it in, and it was a great help. Okay, so we have a way to show that, and here you are. Let's practice. Okay, so this time you're going to start close, and we do this in class with people, your friends, your good friends, and then you're going to move away. And the first time you're just going to move away physically as you're imagining moving away emotionally. What people find is that having practiced it physically helps make it easier to do it emotionally, even if you don't move away. Mm-hmm. But go ahead, and of course you might be saying something like okay, or not. Okay, mm-hmm. So go ahead and explain the situation, or show what the situation looks like.
Okay, so we're friends and we just haven't seen each other in a little while. Okay. Hey, how's you? Good to see you.
Great to see you.
Wow, you're looking a little rough. You're pretty stressed out. And, why haven't you called me back recently? I've sent you like 5 texts. What's going on with you?
And even if he's right there, mm-hmm. It's easier to, he still is in his mind moving away.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
You want us to show that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, why haven't you called me back?
Hey.
I've left multiple messages for you.
I'm sorry.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you. Okay. Redirecting with love. Once I was doing a program with teen moms. They were wonderful teen moms, and they were in unsafe relationships. It was very sad for me because I thought these fabulous, amazing young women were staying with people who weren't treating them very well, and yet it was their choice in this case. So when we practiced, and they would come up with a situation where things sometimes would get violent or threatening, it was often around sex. And they would say, well, he says, I want to have sex. And when they showed us what it looked like, I had a teaching partner who would say, okay, how about it? And they'd say, I am not now. And then the partner, he would say, you're cheating on me. And when they practiced at first, they would run right up to the person who said that, get in his face and say, how dare you say that? You can't talk to me like that. Instead of redirecting with love. And so we practiced them saying, I care about you, as they're moving away, maybe to go to a safer place, maybe to do something else. So let's take a look at how that's practice. All right, so I'm going to just let you, so these are intimate partners, and go ahead.
Okay, so we're a couple, and I've just come in from a really long, exhausting day. Okay. Oh, wow, that was a long day. Really exhausted. It's so stressful, too.
Well, hey, I know of a really great way that we can go and relax and de-stress.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Let's go back to the bedroom.
Oh, not tonight. I really think I just need to get some rest.
Oh, come on. I mean, I've been hearing that excuse constantly lately. What's going on?
I'm just tired. That's all.
Come on, I'm getting tired of hearing it.
I know. I need to get some rest tonight.
Okay. Come on.
I care about you. Okay?
No.
I care about you.
Okay.
I care about you.
Okay.
And so
let's go get some ice cream.
You want to get some ice cream?
Yeah, let's go get some ice cream.
Okay.
All right, great. All right. So you might as well stay for the next one. And this is our most popular technique. It's the It's the Kidpower trash can. It was invented by a first grade teacher. And at first we were just teaching it to kids, but then we were using it ourselves. On an adult level, the idea is very simple, but it works for adults. We do it in corporations. We do it with college students. Sometimes teenagers get a little annoyed, but they do it too. It's a metaphor. If you imagine it, and now if somebody's throwing trash at you and it lands in your face, that's not safe. But if you catch it and you throw it in a trash can and you wash your hands, then that's a way to stay safe. So mean words are like trash. And so put a hand on your hip. Imagine this hole is a trash can, and you can all practice with Jared and MJ. And if I say, "You're stupid," catch that word, throw it away, put your hand on your heart, and say, "I'm smart."
I'm smart.
If I say, "I don't like you," catch those words, throw them away, and say, "I like myself."
I like myself.
You're taking in kindness into your heart, and you're throwing away hurtful words. There are many kinds of trash cans. There's the flip top trash can. There's the mini trash can. A girl, when she was riding a bus, invented this because she didn't want her friends to see it, so she did it behind her back as they were teasing her. There's the shredder. Yeah, it's the trash can. There's the dumpster. And so what you do is, the idea is you dispose of the words. What you're actually doing is recycling them. And we even have a great drawing of a mean words recycling machine where the mean words come in one side and the kindness comes out the other. It's not just what other people say, it's what we say to ourselves. So sometimes, often, people say, "I don't like the way I look." And we can throw those words away too. Catch the words, "I'm ugly," "I wish I looked different." Throw them away and say, "I look great."
I look great.
Or, "I have my own way of looking good."
I have my own way of looking good.
Right. It could be that we say, and I like to say that we say in nature, it's not the rocks or the trees or the mountains that look the skinny and the most the same, that we think are the most beautiful. It's the ones that are weathered and shaped by time, or sometimes by geological movements, or accidents. Those are the most beautiful. And we need to start thinking about people that way too. If you ask a 5-year-old, "Do you wish you looked different?" most of the time they look at you like you're nuts. But if you ask that same kid at age 10, a lot of times they'll say, "Yeah, I do that. I do feel that way." And we need to set a good example by feeling good about how we look too. So if you say, "How could I make such a stupid mistake?" catch those words, throw them away, and say, "Mistakes are part of learning."
Mistakes are part of learning.
I will use the dumpster this time. If you ever make the same mistake again and again, I do. Do you make the same mistakes again and again? Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw those words away. "What's wrong with me? I did it again." And say, "I do not have to be perfect to be great."
I do not have to be perfect to be great.
Wonderful. And one more. If you're learning something new, have you ever said to yourself, "This is too hard. I can't"? Yeah. So in the trash can of your choice, catch the words, "I can't," throw them in the trash, and put your hand on your heart and say, "I just need to give myself more time to learn."
I just need to give myself more time to learn.
And so thank you so much for helping with these demos. We're going to keep going with a couple more, with another story and a couple more techniques. So thank you. Okay, great. All right. In one workshop, I was with a group of intellectually challenged young adults, and a fellow said he wanted to practice the trash can, and he came up and he said, I said, is there anything other people say or you say to yourself you want to throw away? We had a great big old real trash can, and he said, wish I was different. And I mean, at that point, we all felt really sad. And I said, throw those words away. And he did. And I said, now I want you to say to yourself, put your hand on your heart and say after me. And he did very slowly, I am proud of who I am. And he did. And he walked back to his chair. We cheered wildly. In another workshop, a young man said, Irene, how can I throw away words like fat and ugly? I am fat and ugly. And because he was quite large. And I said, well, you know, the moon. There's the no moon, there's the skinny moon, there's a half moon, and there's the round full moon. And throw away those words fat and ugly and say, I am round and beautiful like the full moon. And he did, and he felt better. And then he asked me the question that no one has asked me in any class before or since. He said, is there anything you want to throw away? And I said, well, I don't like my squeaky voice. I don't think it's appropriate for the kind of work I do. And I said, but I don't know what to say about that. And so they discussed, and they told me, your voice says things that make people happy. And I have to tell you, I have never worried about my squeaky voice since. So even no matter how much you do this work, it can be very, very powerful. There are, so two more techniques. One is that they call it the worrywart technique, because a worrywart is somebody who worries all the time, which I have worked very hard not to do, and I worry all the time. And once I gave my mom, because she worried, to a book called Not to Worry. It had 1,000 reasons to worry in it. She said, actually, after reading all those reasons, put things in perspective, and she felt better. However, my sister Elaine said, Irene, I will worry for you. And something was just consuming me, and it was making it hard for me to think. And I will do the worrying for you. I will be your worry wart. And just anytime you think of it, just say, Elaine is worrying about that for me. It really helped. So we've given kids, when they're worrying, sometimes we put little monster puppets on their fingers, and that's their worry wart. Worry, 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 worry. Or we have a worry rock that does your worrying for you. But there's something about being able to give your worries to something else or someone else and take care of that for you that can actually help with your feelings. Finally, there's what I like to call the compassion technique. And it's about not taking people personally. When people say or do things that are hurtful, it's often because of their problems. Even if they're doing it deliberately, it's because of their problems, not because there's something necessarily at all wrong with you. And it helped me with somebody who I dearly, dearly loved and who was being very hurtful. And I realized that he had mental health problems. And once I could consider it a mental illness, a form of mental illness, I could have endless compassion. But I realized that all of us, he had a very traumatic childhood and many traumas in his life. It's recommended now that when in education or in families, that when a child is acting out, not to say what's wrong with that child, but to say what happened with that child. And to just, if you let go of the angry and upset feelings about somebody's behavior, it makes it a lot easier to just, if you need to, set boundaries with the behavior. You often need to set boundaries with the behavior. Last time somebody said, yes, I'm afraid I'm that parent that gets so mad because my kid won't take out the trash because my kid's so hooked on their technology and texting and talking. And I said, so that's a time when you can set boundaries. You can say, and make a technology safety plan and agreement, which we do have, by the way, on our website for those of you who are interested. Boundaries, next week, I'm going to be talking about boundaries, about how to teach boundary setting skills to people of all ages and abilities. That will be our webinar for next week. For now, We are recording this webinar. We will post it and get it to you with some of the resources that we've recommended. But I want to quickly pause and see, are there any questions? Erica?
Nope, no questions, Irene.
Okay, thank you. Last time people asked about bullying. Also, we will also be doing soon a webinar about bullying and one about teaching kids to be safe from sexual abuse without being upsetting or putting information in their heads that doesn't need to be there. So those are things to look forward to. I want to thank all of you for being here. I hope that you will take some of what you've learned, use it for yourself, and also teach these skills to others. If we all, everybody deserves to feel safe. And if we can help somebody by taking one of our techniques, just tell them you got it from Kidpower. That'll help people find us for more. But please teach some of what we've been sharing today. We are, like all nonprofits and all people, I think lots of people struggling with a sudden loss of big income because we aren't doing our in-person classes, which is normally where we make our money. And so we're going online instead, and until we can, and we will continue to go online because people have been asking for this kind of training for years. We plan to do a great deal more online, and if there are things that we can do to be of help to you, please let us know. You can email us at safety@kidpower.org. If you're in a position to help us out with a donation in any amount at all, please go to our website and make a donation, or tell other people. If it doesn't work for you, you've done the most important thing here already, just being here, and maybe someday it will work for you. We want to, in this challenging time, it's more important than ever, because as we're isolating, we also want and need to stay connected. And this is a great time to think about the energy that we can put into staying connected. Because if you just don't try that hard, it's like there's two people and the connection gets lost. But if we hang on tight, then our connections can just get stronger, even if we're apart. We can hang on with each other one at a time, and we can hang on with our communities. And we at Kidpower are determined to keep hanging on tight to each other and to all of you in any way that we can to be helpful. So with that, thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your evening or rest of your day, depending on where you are. And we will look forward to being together with you again soon.